And we are working in partnership with the Uganda-UK Convention, the organizers of the convention in London that has been taking place over the last 10 years every September. Unfortunately, due to COVID this year, the convention was moved to next year, September, same month. But we said we cannot skip the conversations, so we can use technology to connect Uganda with the rest of the world, and so that Ugandans across the world can discuss and put their minds together to tap into the opportunities that the agri-food industry in Uganda offers, both in terms of investment, but also in terms of skill. But I also know that some of you may also assist us in improving access to markets. But I know Perez very well because last year at the UK convention, we were on the same panel discussing a similar subject. But we thought that since majority of us have been asking how do we access markets, we thought let's start with one of our own. Yes, she may not be Ugandan, but she's being a Kenyan, but she has also done a lot of business in Uganda. So it's because of that we thought that she has some great experience and experience that can help us. So Perez, in terms of your connection to our region, what are you doing with what are you exporting from East Africa or Uganda in particular? If you've done any business with Uganda, what are you exporting from Uganda, and what challenges are you currently facing?
Okay, first of all, I'm not based in Uganda, so I would not be exporting from Uganda, import from Uganda. I'm based in the UK, just for clarification for those who don't know. I'm based in the UK, so what we import from Uganda, originally we had a big contract for dry beans, kidney beans, which we gave a very stringent specification around moisture content, aflatoxin, but that was in 2018. And since then, we tried to import fresh maize as well from Uganda, but again, we stopped that because of the issues of aflatoxin. Unfortunately, we do not import sweet potatoes from Uganda, mainly because we have our own farmers that grow specifically for us in your neighborhood in Kenya. But our intention was to actually expand that into Uganda, especially in the lake region. At the moment, we are doing developing a product for using the tofu as an ingredient. So we have an exporter from Uganda who exports to us, as an importer into the UK. We are not a registered exporter in Uganda, but we're a registered exporter in Kenya and a registered importer into the UK. So that's what our position is. We would be very interested, and I think really, if it's there, we've been talking about issues of expanding, especially a supply of flour and orange flag sweet potatoes. We've talked about beans, and I'm sure, these are some of the issues we've addressed during the convention, and met a couple of ministers and people in the government. But I think those have not progressed for various reasons.
Yeah, of course, it's good you've touched areas like beans and sweet potatoes. In Uganda, there is an obsession with the traditional cash crops like coffee, cotton, tea, and of course, we now have fish. Maize has come up for the region, but not outside the region. So it's good that you have touched areas like beans, which are, in a way, are not taken that seriously. What influenced you to focus on these commodities that you're currently working on, as opposed to the traditional crops that we export from Uganda?
We have, sorry, I didn't mention, somebody's talked about my sound. I don't know if you can hear me now. Maybe it's the way I'm sitting, my voice is not projecting correctly. And I'm also trying to play around with my computer to see if I can increase the volume. But can everybody hear me properly? I can speak up loud. I'm trying to speak decently.
We can hear you very well.
Now we can hear you.
Without,
yes, we can hear you now.
Can
hear you.
Across, the phone, yes. The question was, can you just repeat the question about what is it you're looking for, or you're talking about the traditional crops like tea, coffee?
Yeah, because traditionally when you talk about exports from Uganda, people immediately jump on the traditional cash crops that the colonialists left with us.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe to a certain degree, things like fish. Recently, we have seen dairy products coming up again on the export side. But not a lot about potato, which in Uganda is taken as a poor man's food. And therefore, people are not interested in investing in it. But I can see you have seen that opportunity in such value chains that others here do not consider seriously. What influenced you to look at, to make the choice that you made in terms of commodities for importation from our region?
It's a bit of a long question, but I'll try and answer it in 3 points. First, I want to address the issue of importing things like fish, for example, the protein-based products, beef, or maybe honey products of animal origin. Now, there's strict EU guidance in imports of these products from any African countries and from other parts of the world. And at the moment, as I know, for example, Uganda beef and Kenya beef, for example, or fish or other protein-based products are not allowed in the EU. And one of the major reasons is obviously the use of certain antibiotics that we use in farming some of these things, like fish, for example, or the plant foods. So already there's a restrictions on importing these products from African countries. On my selection of product is, I have a particular interest in sweet potatoes because my initiative is based on capability building. I've got an interest in social impact. That was my biggest motivation. And I've spent a lot of time on researching the sweet potato product. So when you ask my choice of product is, it's because it's a crop that I understand how to handle. I've done a lot of research on it. I'm confident on how to grow, harvest, store, its utilization as an ingredient in other products. I'm confident about the target market that I am operating in because I'm continuously doing research and development on the crop. So that is why, for me, sweet potato is a very interesting product. But not to mention that I've dealt with all other crops. About 150 different crops from all over the world when I was in Spitalfield market. So I've imported a lot of products from other countries. The question is, my target market, where do I think I can find? Why do I want to focus on a particular crop and not all the other crops? So there are several reasons that have kind of guided and influenced my choice and focus on products. When it comes to things like teas and coffees and all the other crops that have commercial crops that have really done well in East Africa, or not just Uganda for that matter. When you talk about tea, you talk about coffee, you talk about cashews. These are crops that, as you said correctly, Mr. Katende, were originally grown by investors during the times. They've got, they're not smallholder farmers. These are commercial farmers who have huge investments, and not just as small companies, but multinational companies. And so the investment backing such crops is so huge, and obviously their market, their access to market, they're well rooted. Not just in UK, Europe, but internationally. When you talk of people like the Finlays, the Tees people, These people are all over the world with huge investments, in that. So I'm believing that in today we are looking at maybe focusing discussion not just on the crops that are already doing well, but if that's of a particular interest to anyone in the group, we can also look at that and what are the opportunities in that area. Hi guys, are you there?
Yes. I had to unmute myself.
Yes, we are.
It's so quiet.
So, yeah, we are giving you a chance to speak, and then
talk too much. Listen, if you let me talk, I'll talk until the cows come back home.
No, within the next 5 minutes, so I will open up the discussion so people can ask questions.
Okay.
Let me ask the last one, which is a general issue that we see among players like yourself, the issue of supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure continuous supply, whether it is the potato that you have, whether it's the beans? How do you ensure that continuous supply and at the same time supply that complies with your European buyers' requirements?
God, it's a whole that question is weighty, but let me try and answer it. To assure sustainability of supply, we have had to put money. It's investment. Money plays a big role in strengthening the supply chain, educating the farmers, but most importantly, and I think this is going to be a big part of our discussion today, is setting up the infrastructures required to harvest, store the crop correctly, and meet all the regulations or international standards that we adhere to. We subscribe to many standards like ISO 22000 for processing and manufacturing. We also work with local like, for example, Kenya, we work a lot with Kenya Bureau of Standards, but just as a base standard, not necessarily the standard that opens the market for us. So there's a huge investment that we have made in standards. We are constantly researching at the market and understanding what the market requires. Our whole program is based on understanding the market where we are in. What does the consumer want? When do they want it? How do they want it? What are the ever-increasing regulatory issues that we must meet in the markets? And there's all of global issues like packaging, plastic packaging versus other packaging. There's also the issue of traceability, which is now becoming a big problem. They've moved it a notch higher. So traceability before was just being able to find, trace that product back to where it was born. But traceability now is involving issues of utilization of water. It's using further testing soil for microbes that were never tested before. So there's constant requirements that evolve in the market, regulatory-wise, as well as the consumer demands. But I think the biggest driver for us is the consumer demand, and what are the trends, consumption trends in this country. The biggest trend now we have is the issue of powder, because this is moving towards personalized nutrition. And that is driving our continuous research and innovation and the development. Obviously, we have to develop, innovate, and then commercialize those products. And so you understand why it's not easy for us to want to deal with so many other groups. But there are a few things that I really want to mention before we open up the discussion to people. First and foremost, one of the biggest challenges is bulking of the product, because unless the farmers begin to understand, more or less like we are in the coronavirus situation now, that if we do not work together, we are not going to be able to access the market. Because as much as we think that maybe the volumes you can produce, maybe you have a 10-acre land, most farmers, I would say, have 2 to 3 or 5 acres of land. That is not sustainable supply. So we are going to have to kind of come together in some sort of consortium or some sort of cooperative to have anybody interested in buying a product from us. So the issue of corporateness coming together, is going to be really critical if anybody is going to be thinking at this market. I'm going to also be giving you examples of some of the successful models in Europe. There are farmers in Europe just like farmers in Africa with limited resources, but they have sustained their presence in certain markets. And why is that so? And why can't we? Yeah, with very limited land, they're still able to manage sustainable supply. And I also want to bring the issue of research and development and innovation. Somebody has to invest money in this, because when you talk about packaging, you're not going to be packing your products in the same packaging materials as we did 10 years ago, which is what we try to do. And I'm sure maybe Willy, I don't know, Edward as well, these are some of the big issues we addressed at Spitalfield Market. When you look at the packaging coming from our African countries, it becomes a big logistical problem. It becomes an issue for losses, for fresh produce in this country. And who wants to incur those losses? Who's going to bear the cost of those losses? And then, of course, I want to talk about the issue of investment. The money has to be put in it. We are not going to go to the global marketplace and tell people how poor we are, how we need support. It's a global playing field. And I think one of the things that perhaps some of us have not understood is that if we are going to compete, whether we are big or small, we are going to have to do the same thing that the players are doing. So I think, Edward, let me leave it at that stage. And there's a lot to cover, but it's not all discouraging. There's more opportunities, if we can get ourselves organized, basically. Hi, Edward, are you there?
Sorry, yes, I'm saying that one more question for me. Yes, you have really touched the consumer, and I know when you look at the global trends that are powering the agri-food industry, one of them is the empowered consumer. Mm-hmm. But we have seen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen your product with the royal family in the UK, which I think is a very, very big achievement for you, Sakoma, and us as East Africa. But how can an East African supplier or exporter or an importer like you who is importing from our region create that kind of trust that the princes, the royals, the presidents, the prime ministers around the world can start serving our food on their dining tables?
I think there's I'm so glad that you asked these questions. I don't know if anybody watched the Facebook article I did a couple of weeks ago. One of the biggest challenges for the current manufacturers globally is the use of innovative, novel ingredients to create new products that the consumer has tasted. With the good understanding that the consumer in this part of the world, and when I talk about this part of the world, I'm talking from Europe and the developed countries that actually create the demands for our products way back at farm level. They have hunger for new things. And this is a community that would eat anything, including nothing, as long as there's something called good for me. Is it good for them to eat? Is it nutrition? They don't have, societal or what I would call cultural issues about food. That, we Luos, we don't eat this, and we don't eat snakes, and we don't eat snails, and we give all good other cultural reasons about why we can't eat, for example, worms. They would eat everything, but somebody has to give them a reason why they should eat it. And this is where the opportunity for African farmers is, because our foods are still natural and authentic. And this is what the consumer is yearning for. The challenge for now, the local producer, is how do you understand what this consumer and the buyers along the supply chain require How do they want it? Do they want it powder form? Do they want it fresh? Do they want it semi-processed? Sorry, did somebody try to say something?
No. Continue. Somebody had left their microphone on unmute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's understanding how your product can be used. There's a in the year 1990s, I saw in the 20th century to say there was a big push for exporting fresh produce to Europe. But now that is going to be challenged by all the global issues that are happening. Food safety is becoming a big thing. You know, look at all these, viruses that are, constantly changing how we do pack food and how we move it along the supply chain. So you're wanting to think, okay, what is my positioning in the market to supply what these markets want? Your target market is not necessarily the consumer, the end consumer. So selling directly consumer should not be necessarily your focus. Your focus would be how can you sell to industries? This is where the big market is, the big manufacturers. You know, how can you make your products needed and be a critical part of products. If you look at the present report from all the large supermarkets, 20% in the next 5 years of what is going to be on the supermarket shelf is going to be some sort of product from West Africa. You know, when you're talking about the yams, you're talking about plantain, you're talking about their hot sauces. So the consumer push is already there, so the manufacturers are constantly developing new products using these authentic African ingredients. These West African countries seem to be better positioned. I don't know why. But I think there's also an answer because if Willy, you done your research or Edward, you would notice that there's more or larger, maybe African supermarkets that are owned by people from West Africa. So they've kind of over a long time introduced their foods into this market. And the traditional white and other ethnic communities and cultures are beginning to appreciate their food. But these are all different marketing tactics and different opportunities that they have taken advantage of. So my answer to you is the research. Well, you ought to do research and find out what is needed, and then we can focus on growing what is needed or what is demanded. In other words, not just needed, demanded.
Oh, thank you so much, colleagues. I have had my chance to ask, and now it is yours. I will, by show of hands, if you put up your hand, I will go with whoever is on top. You can look at I think there are 3 dots on the bottom right corner of your handset. You have a button there for more. If you click on that, you can see 3 options. One is disconnect audio, raise a hand. So it's that's what you need to press, and I will be able to see your hand, and I can then take your question. I'm trying to connect as well, but just hold on for me.
Mr. Edward, there's a question in the message in the chat. If you can read that question first, please.
Okay, I've seen about 7 hands up, but let me read the question first. From Businje. My name is Businje Christopher Amoti. I'm the chairman of Toro Agriculture and Tourism Associates here in Fort Portal, Uganda. My concern is on inclusiveness in these international markets. We have a lot of natural and health foods grown here, like pineapple, bananas, but we find challenges to get into the market because of the monopoly of a few government-connected individuals. I don't think that is a question, it's a comment. So, Perez, I think, is it okay if we take about 5 questions at a time? Or is that too much?
That's too much.
Oh,
Make it 2 at a time.
I think that's an interesting question that needs
Or
to be
maybe
answered.
just 1 at a time would be fine. I think 1 at a time.
No, let's do 2.
Okay,
Let's
2, that's fine. Okay, 2.
Let me read the comment they have made. It's a comment, it's not a question.
Okay.
But they are saying that their concern is inclusiveness in the international markets. That there are a lot, Uganda has a lot of natural and health foods which we grow, like bananas, pineapples, but our people find challenges in getting into the international markets because of what they think is the monopoly of a few government-connected people. But I think that was more of a comment than a question. I think I'm wrong.
Edward, that's a comment. That's a question.
There is, who is on top? It's a comment, but answer that. Then the next one is Ronnie Apuli. Please ask your question or your comment.
Yes, good evening and good afternoon, wherever you may be. My question is basically to do with understanding the trends, because I have listened to Perez, and she's talking about what has been happening in the markets in Europe and the trends that it is taking. Now, I am one of the people who thinks that the way that system is designed is normally designed to suit the system that is running now. But when you look at us in Africa, our model of agriculture, our produce, they are perennial. We cannot supply throughout the year if we are to maintain certain characteristics of our produce, to maintain their authenticity. For example, crops grow in certain times. When you try to change that, then you change its authenticity. You have to go and get some kind of engineering done to those products. Now, I was wondering, is there a way we can start thinking at how we can make our produce be marketable in the time when it is ready and in the way that we have it here? I'll give a simple example. Our avocado we produce here in Uganda, they are quite big, they are juicy, they are green. They have, when you go into the supermarkets and they give you the requirements of what avocado they want, we don't have it here. And yet, as a matter of fact, I have tasted that avocado in the UK supermarkets. Ours beats that avocado 100 and so many times. So how do we change the system from us meeting what they want to us promoting what we have? Just like the West Africans have done, like Perez rightly quoted. The West Africans have actually sold what they have to themselves in Europe because...
Ronnie, I'm limiting you to a few seconds, please. We have many hands up.
Okay, so I'm just saying that the West Africans are succeeding because they are trying to sell what they have and how they have it. And it is also assisted by the market in that they have many immigrants in Europe who are consuming these products. So they are supporting and creating demand. And otherwise, I don't see how we can enter those markets because we cannot fit in that system naturally and by virtue of our what we'd call comparative advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, can we take one more? Daniel.
Hello.
Daniel, you have your hand up. Daniel's iPhone.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Madam Perez, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Daniel, and I can see you in your big headphones.
Okay. Now I'm raising a few questions. Thank you so much for organizers to put this together. I just want to request Madam Perez to stress on the point of traceability. What advice would you give to the small producers in East Africa or Africa for making sure that their products can be really traced from the producers to the supply chain within the UK if they want to really enter into the international markets, or also the advantages of traceability within the local market in Africa? And also, what advice would you give to the government to see that we can improve our supply chain and place warehousing systems in the UK?
Yeah, Perez, you can answer those for now, and then you can take a few.
Okay, let me start with about inclusiveness in supply of our products to the global marketplace. I think this is an area where I would want to say that sometimes we have a realistic expectation, because just because we have something good does not give us the right for people to buy it, because the buyer, as we always say, is the king. You know, they've got the money, they've got to choose what they want and how they want it. And when I talk about a buyer here, I'm talking about the blanket buyers, the consumers, the distributors, or the people who use this product as ingredients. So when you talk, say for example, you talk about pineapples that you produce in Uganda, you would realize that if I was to ask you the number of varieties of pineapples that you produce, you'd be surprised how many varieties you produce botanically. If you ask you what is the botanical name of the pineapple that you produce, and you will be shocked that even your next door neighbor actually doesn't produce the same pineapple as you do. And when you walk around along the road, the people selling by the roadside or in the market, they're selling pineapples. But matter of fact, they're actually selling different crops because they're different botanical names. And so in Europe, for example, if you talk about somebody like Del Monte, who is the biggest buyer, you know, they own a whole load of supply chain from their own farms, but they still buy, you know, they've got their own variety, their own seed of pineapple that is produced for a specific thing in the market. And so the question is, you know, whatever varieties of pineapples that you produce, which one does the consumer need here? And I just want to give you a bit of example from sweet potatoes. In Kenya alone, when we talk about orange flesh sweet potatoes, you have 100 varieties of orange flesh sweet potatoes. Anybody looking at it, you know, physically, observation, they'll think the same crop. But when you start working with these products in different things, either you're going to develop a different products with nutrition values, you might find that one sweet potato has more vitamin C or vitamin A than the other, or one has more potassium, or one has more zinc than the other. So that is why if this market now, for example, there is a big demand for zinc and then potassium, people are buying all sorts of tablets to boost their immune system. So if I say, okay, there's a big demand for vitamin C now, you know, so which of the sweet potatoes has a high level of vitamin C? And so translate this into the pineapple. So a question is, locally as a pineapple grower, is find out how many varieties of pineapples are there and which one is being exported by whatever who it is, whether dominating the market or they're just unfairly, you know, not competing fairly with the local producers. When you talk about bananas in Uganda, again, I know Matoke is really pushing into the European market because of its nutrition values, not necessarily nutrition, but its health benefits. But when you talk about other bananas, like the small apple banana, a lot of maybe white people don't even know what apple banana is. You know, I remember there's a time we took apple banana to one of the schools and the kids thought it was a toy. So the question is, you know, whatever you think is of nutrition value, who is in your market that is creating awareness of the benefit of that particular crop to begin to interest the consumers to ask questions to see how they could potentially either consume it directly or buy it. So I think I want to leave that question at that point, and then I want to talk about the issue of trends and how we can grow, you know, because there's the issue of how many people can grow the same crop to the same standard. Sustainability, there's the issue of seasons. Now, my brother asked about seasons, and I think if Willy is still on the platform, I have talked about this issue at the convention so many times. The consumer in this market does not understand something called seasons. They don't know there's dry season, there's wet season, there's rainy season, there's harvesting season, there's planting season. They don't know that. They know that when they go to the supermarket, they are going to get whatever they like and they are going to buy it. Now, supermarket owners are under huge pressure to only place on their shelf a product that will constantly bring the consumer in to buy from their shelf, because they want to move product from their shelf to the consumer's basket. So when you talk about sustainable supply, one of the biggest issues, and I'm sure I saw it in our discussions in the platform, is sustainability of supply. You know, if you're going to get a contract to supply avocado or you're going to supply passion fruit, one of the small contracts, you know, I mean small letters you're going to sign is that you're going to supply this sustainably over the period of time that you're given. Sustainability is not an issue about seasons. And this is my personal opinion. It's a question of how can you store that crop long enough to continuously supply it even when it is out of season. So for example, if you are, say, for example, we are talking about avocado. What are the technologies you have to keep your avocado available in the market even when it is not harvesting season? Because the thing is, when it is time for harvesting, most of our crops are wasted. 25% of our crops are wasted at farm level, because we do not have the right technologies to be able to store the crop for a long period of time. And if you go to the UK supermarket now, I was so shocked. In fact, I'll go to my freezer and get you, show you a sample. There is a big section now for frozen avocado. And I bought it, and I said specifically, I'm coming to show it to this forum today. Now, frozen fruit is one of the technologies that is used to keep the product in supply for a long period of time in and out of season. So the challenge for you as a farmer who wants to access this market is what are the technologies you're going to use to make sure that your crop is available throughout this? Because the market that you're looking for does not understand season. They don't understand crop failure. They don't understand that now there's floods in Kenya and Lake Victoria is full up and overflows. They just don't understand that. They just want to walk to a supermarket and they want to find the product on the shelf. So the question is how are we investing the technologies that enable us to store our crops? And my colleague rightfully drove us to the next question of warehousing. You know, we cannot supply this market by harvesting, packing, and running to the market. We must begin to understand that in order to look for these markets, we are going to have some sort of warehousing system where there is a stock of the crop available to supply throughout the year sustainably for the market we are looking for. Now, this brings to question the issues of things like AI, artificial intelligence. We are talking about precision agriculture. We are going to have to invest in them. You know, we cannot supply the market by growing the crop seasonally as naturally as it ought to. There are technologies now that will enable us to grow the crop and it will still taste the same and still retain its intrinsic values. You know, because we are looking at the issues of soil health, we are looking at the issues of the storage methods to make sure that this crop is available throughout the year. And we cannot blame anyone for this because, as I said, the market is a global platform. and the market will only buy what is available and what is according to their requirement. And this is where we are trying to get a portion of this market. And these are the things that the challenges that we are going to have to up our games in order for us to be able to be at the same global playing field with other people who supply these sort of crops sustainably. And then my colleague asked about traceability and standards. Does anybody understand what traceability is? Anybody who doesn't understand what traceability is? Do we all understand what traceability is?
Oh. It's possible that you are not seeing them nodding to say no. Yeah. Maybe you can have a go at explaining.
I will explain a basic description what traceability is. Traceability is the ability for a consumer, if say, for example, I picked a banana that has been supplied into Europe from Uganda, say Matoke, for example, one banana of Matoke that I buy from my house or my supermarket in East London. I should be able to trace that crop back to the farmer in Uganda. Why is this important? This is important for Europe in order for them to control diseases. If, for example, today there was an outbreak of E. coli, they need to be able to trace the source of that E. coli. So the first and foremost, anybody who is going to handle this one banana along the supply chain should be able to trace it back to the farm at, say, for example, Entebbe or Tororo, to Onyango Ochieng's farm in the village. Now, to be able to meet traceability, there are standards that help you to meet those that traceability requirement. It's a requirement by EU, by law, that you should be able to trace your products back to the farm. There are several standards. They say, for example, if you're working towards a BRC standard, so these are certifications that you are audited for on a yearly basis. This helps you to put systems in place, the paperwork required to back up the movement of that crop from your farm up to the consumer. There are also blockchain traceability, but these are damn expensive, traceability systems that as a producer, along with your supply chain, your logistic companies, your exporters, your shippers, your distributors at this end should be able to manage all along the supply chain. So as a farmer, one of the challenges that you're going to face is, what traceability system are you going to use? There are several of them. Most of them require additional investment. Most of them would work on an IT platform, for example. It's a lot of paperwork that you need to keep. So being able to read and write is a really important part of it. But being able to keep documentation, and there are all sorts of labels required to meet traceability in this. And traceability is much easier in fresh produce than it is in processed food. So for example, if you're talking about roasted coffee, or if you're talking about honey, I've had people talk about maybe ground flour, like ground matoke flour, or you're talking about groundnut and peanut. Of course, those ones have their own issues. But if you were to attempt to export peanut from Uganda to UK and get it in the market, you'd have to trace from where you grew the peanut, how it was harvested, how it was stored, how it was processed, the ingredients, the preservatives, the packaging, all up to the shelf in the market. And this requires a system to do that. I'll stop there so that I can take more questions.
Thank you, Perez. I have been scrolling through the participants list, and I'm seeing some big people in our midst. While you were talking about, for example, sustainability and traceability, one country that has done this very well is Ireland. And I know the Republic of Ireland, and I know, because I've been there, their food-wise strategy is all centered around the issue of sustainability, which has actually now made them a native exporter of beef and dairy and other products. Mm-hmm. I have seen the ambassador, Sluvia Gavigan, our honorary ambassador in Ireland, perhaps he will share with us some ideas about how Ireland has gone about this, because I am extremely impressed by the Irish experience in terms of how they have improved their agri-food industry over the last 30 years. Just to put in context, of about 30, 40 years ago, they were almost where all of us in Africa are. But they have turned that around and have become a very big player in European agri-food industry. So, Ambassador, you're welcome. But please prepare a few seconds. You can share with us now or later on when you're ready. I'm also seeing Ambassador Leonard Mugerwa, our Deputy High Commissioner in the UK. Sir, you're welcome, and I know your office is doing quite a lot to enable our exporters in Uganda access the UK market. But please also feel free to chip in anytime you feel free, because these are things that you deal with regularly. I will now come to Mr. Evarist Kayondo, the chairman of Kasita. I've seen your hand has been up for quite a long time. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Edward. And thank you, Perez, for that elaborate explanation. I have just, and they have an office in Kampala, because I'm based in Kampala, and I wanted to see whether we can interact with them in Kampala, and if we have farmers to get started on this long journey, so that we can see how we can liaise with them. And number two, the other ones are, then these ones can also explain locally things to do with the quality and the quantity. But most importantly, I've heard of the beans and the sweet potatoes. These, especially the beans, do we expect, do you want or do you export fresh beans or dry beans? These are my two questions. Thank you very much.
Respond to that. Edward?
Oh.
Are you going to take another question, or should I respond to that?
No, let's take a second question from Sen Port.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You hear me? Okay, my name is James Senyangi. I'm calling from Canada. My question is, okay, I've seen, I have two questions. The first one is their website where we can find resources of, let's say, different companies listing the products they are exporting outside the region, East African region. Let's say they are exporting to Middle East, Europe, North America, and then they show the standards that they have the certification from those regions. For example, if my company's Senports is an export and import company, and if I want to import things from Uganda, I would first of all contact a company which has already a certification. Because to give you a certification means that you have met the standards of whatever the country is requiring. Let's say Canada or US, you have the standards. You have standards in manufacturing, or have the standards in packaging and shipping and so on, so that I don't go to this other local wholesaler to start wasting my time with a product which will be rejected. So now is there a website of resources? That's number one which also has the standards, mentions the standards, what standard certification they have. So my second question is, when are you having an exhibition which is more of import and export focusing on the international level. For example, in February, I was in Uganda in January and February, and I attended the Expo Harvest at Nambole Stadium, and I gained a lot, but it didn't meet what I wanted, my needs. My needs was about exports and import, and most of the content there, the people were focusing on growing and harvesting within the East African region. And I saw a lot of problems because, let's say somebody is exporting beans to Southern Sudan. Some of them have even some soils and some little particles which are not beans. So such things, those are the issues. Those beans, for example, they cannot be exported to Canada. They'll be dumped there and what. So so that's my my question, that are you or any of you expecting to organize a major expo harvest, or instead of expo harvest, or expo import, or export, expo exports, expo exports. So that's my word. So to give you just a little bit background here, for example, first of all, my intention was one time I had my companies are like 1.5 years old.
Can you please make it quick, because there are so many hands up?
Yeah. I wanted to import pomegranates, but I failed. There are no pomegranates in Uganda. Yet this is a value-added item. High value crop which can easily grow in Uganda. So right now I have problem of importing from companies which are agro-based. For example, Uganda breweries, their products come from the farmers. About 80% of their inputs, raw materials, coming, let's say, Uganda and so on. I wrote to them about being the agent or representative in one of the provinces of Canada, and they haven't even replied me. And I'm trying to import things from Uganda to help these farmers. No reply. And these are manufacturers who want to sell, who are looking for market. They have a lot of Uganda pineapple and so on, gin and so. And I will have a certification to import in one of the provinces, because here the regulations are very stringent. I cannot import directly from Uganda breweries. So those are the problems.
I'm going to end you there.
I'm done. I'm done.
So we can give other people a chance to speak. Of course, I'll quickly just give some info. The Uganda-UK Convention has done many sessions since I think 2010, over 10 years. And if you can do a Google search, YouTube search, you can see they have a YouTube channel where different videos have been recorded over the course of the last years. And a number of these are talking about imports and exports. But also in Uganda on the export side, yes, different players, the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda, almost every year organizes shows or expos on how to access international markets. And so is the Export Promotions Board. So we normally have these in the country, but perhaps they are not well publicized. But now that we have these kind of platforms, anytime these come up, we'll be able to promote them as far as possible. But Perez, you can have a go at the.
Okay. I'll start with the first question about the standards for Canada, for example, EU. Different economic zones have different standards. And say, for example, EU standards, I know today we were more focused on EU, But when you compare the standards required for food for EU or for US, which have FDA standards or required for Canada, they would level to be quite similar, you know, because these countries trade with each other based on what we call the World Trade Organization standard, the Codex Alimentary standards. And each country, to protect their own consumers or each trade bloc, adds the additional protection they require to ensure that they protect their consumers from any harmful foods entering the country. So that's why you find that sometimes a food product that is able to go into USA, for example, might not be allowed into the EU, basically because the regulations are different. But they are still stringent. And today, I think my focus was on the EU regulations and standards as opposed to just all the global regulations. Now, I want to stress something about local importers, local exporters. There is no farmer or that would be able to just pack up their produce and get it onto, what is it, Brussels airline or Uganda airline that comes to UK, you know, from Uganda or from other parts of the world, and just send it to this country. There are regulatory channels that must be followed when you're exporting produce. First, because there are tax issues, you've got to pay local taxes, and of course there are other taxes internationally. There are forms that need to be filled in for traceability. There are forms that need to be filled in to authorize the export of that particular product. So that is why when you're talking about working with exporters, your exporter in Uganda as a farmer, the exporter that buys your crops or that you supply, or you as a farmer, if you want to register a farmer group that registers as an exporter group, there are regulations that you'd have to adhere to. There are standards, there are things that you have to prove before you can be a registered exporter. For example, you'd have to prove that you have a proper clean warehouse that meets the standard required by the country you're going to export to. You're going to prove that your crop has been handled to the standards required by the EU. For example, the use of fertilizers and certain chemicals that are not allowed in the EU. So one thing I want to stress to you today is that once your crop leaves your country, whether you are in Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa, it is no longer your name on the crop. It's the country's name that is on the crop. So when it lands at Heathrow Airport, which we now call the port of entry, when that crop is rejected, it is not going to be Onyango Joseph exporter's crop that is rejected. It is going to be recorded as a crop from Uganda that has been rejected. Every rejection that takes place at the Heathrow Airport entry is logged in against that country. You're only given a certain number of rejections before the country is totally blocked from importing that product into the UK or EU. And that is why the local export agencies take extra responsibility to make sure that whatever crop that they will authorize, either by issuing what we call phytosanitary certificates, is a crop that they have ascertained meets the standard required by the market here. So any other tests that are conducted at the market at the port of entry, like MRL levels, if they don't meet it, it would be either by mistakes or carelessness or some sort of reason why the crop would reach here and still does not meet the standard required from the UK. So first of all, there's you as a farmer working with the local regulatory bodies and exporters who are going to be buying the products. And there are punishments, of course. There are punitive measures for exporters that don't meet the regulations, because if you export the wrong crop, it's the country's name that is at stake. So it's no longer just you, the farmer or the exporter, it's the person who actually authorizes for that crop to leave the country. And then I want to mention about the beans. Dry beans, fresh beans, whatever different stages of beans or different fresh produce or dry foods produce that you are exporting are all categorized under different categories based on the economic partnership agreements that the country has. If there's anybody from Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, we know the issue that has been going on with the signing off the EPA between the East African community countries. Now, those issues actually affect you directly as a farmer or as an exporter, because those agreements determine whether your crop is going to incur additional taxes, when they are exported to this country or not. So the reason why I bring this is because when you talk about beans, the definition of dry beans and fresh beans, there's usually maybe a very small difference. Let's say, for example, what is it called? Groundnuts. This is a very live example for me. For example, if you export your groundnut with a certain amount of I would say wetness or water content, it is considered fresh produce. When you peel your groundnuts from the shell, it is considered a processed produce. So it has a different regulatory requirement as a processed food as opposed to as a fresh produce. So it's understanding all these little differences, that enables you to now focus on, do you want to focus on the fresh produce market? Do you want to go into the processed produce market? Or do you want to process in what they call the composite? Composite is you can mix two products that will be used into this country as an ingredient to complete another product for this country. So I think for the purposes of this meeting, one of the most important things we need to realize, it's not going to be like a blanket benefit for each crop. Each crop would have to form its own market strategy because it's going to be targeting a different consumer audience. And that would require different marketing strategy, a different entry strategy, different packaging strategy or requirements or innovations and technology that would enable that product to reach here. Edward, are you there?
The other questions that were raised.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, I'm here. Yeah, Madam Sylvia, Ambassador Sylvia, sorry I said Mr., but I'm really, really sorry. But I can recognize your face. Please forgive me. But I will give you some time, maybe in the next few minutes, so you can tell us the opportunities Uganda can have with Ireland. Because I really, like I said, I'm very, very impressed. And Ambassador Mgerwa, also please prepare to say something to your people. Perez, let's take 3 more questions and then we can give the ambassadors time to, as our ambassadors, to tell us what also they can add. The first question is Galaxy Tab A. I don't know who that is, but you know yourself. Please ask your question or your comment. Galaxy Tab A. No response. Elvis Osmegi. Elvis?
Yeah, hi. Yes, I'm here. Hi, good evening. Yeah, my question is just a simple one. I mean, listening to what the presenter has said, it's quite impressive. It's a lot of rules and regulations which you need to meet to be able to export. What we are looking at is for the small local farmer who has opportunities or who has some sort of equity and has invested and wants to grow. And eventually the local market is too small for them, but they want to go into the export market. What opportunities are there for them to get into the market? Because it's a market that is dominated by few. How can they break into the mold? And is there any advice you can give them that could help them? Because, for instance, I understand from the cooperative side, you can look at the cooperative side, which a lot of, for instance, Brazil, a lot of people with the sugar, a lot of cooperative came in together and they've grown massively based on the fact that a lot of farmers came together and did a cooperative and they've expanded. But for the small farmers who has an opportunity to grow, but they're bigger than the local market, but they want to get into the export market in Europe or wherever. What opportunities are there for them, and how can they break into this? Break into the cartel, break the cartel that already is currently existing, should I say?
Thank you, Elvis. Anne Kazungu, your hand has been up earlier before everybody else.
Hello. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, this is Anne. No, my question earlier was about traceability, and I think the presenter answered it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Perez, as you answer Elvis's question, there's another question in the chat. It's more of a speculative question about the importation climate post-Brexit. Do you think that after 31st December, the bar is likely to be lowered by Britain? Or is it likely to be, or is it logical for Uganda to proceed and aim for like the European Union's stringent standards, assuming that these will prevail for a while and that there is no harm in aiming high?
Okay, I think I'll start with answering the first question about the opportunity that exists for a local farmer. The opportunity exists for you as far as you want to expand your business, your own model. For example, I would assume that if you're currently exporting, then probably you have an exporter that comes and buys your produce, or you grow to, you are an outgrower for an existing exporter in the country. If you want to get into the market directly, then the first and foremost thing you need to do is you would have to register yourself with the local authority as a registered exporter. Now, as a registered exporter, you're kind of availed a different level of information that perhaps is not available for you currently as a farmer at the farm level. And this would be the trainings that are available for exporters. There are a lot of funded initiatives that EU does for countries, what they call technical assistance. And these trainings are normally free for exporters from particular countries to attend trainings in order for them to understand the EU regulations. So the good news is that the EU does not just impose a regulation and expect you to meet it. The local people are actually trained and made to understand what the regulations are. So, for example, if we have Uganda Export Authority, or in Kenya, for example, would be what we call XCBA or KEFI. Sorry? Yeah, so you would have to register yourself as an exporter. The benefit for being registered as an exporter is that you then get opportunity to maybe participate in external exhibitions. So if you are interested, for example, in an Italian market, every February they have the exhibition in Italy. It's called, I think, is a Nuga, and then Germany also does a similar exhibition. The UK does similar exhibition for fresh produce. So as an exporter, you would have to put in the additional investment to fly and make visits into these markets as the existing exporters are. But if your resources are limited, then you're kind of left with no choice but to rely on the existing exporters who would then commission you or contract you as a grower for them, and gives you the guidelines to grow so that they buy the crop from you. So if you, at the moment you think you've outgrown that place where you think, okay, I can do much more myself, you can put more investment, then the first stage is to register yourself as a local exporter. And then you can access additional information that enables you to look at a bigger picture of the market. And then I want to address the issue of opportunity at Brexit. Last year there was CHOGM, there was 2 years ago, and we're so sorry that it was going to take place in Uganda this year, but of course it's been cancelled. One of the biggest outcomes of CHOGM in 2019 or 2018 was the opportunities that exist in the Commonwealth countries. If you understand what Commonwealth is, Commonwealth are countries that are already brought together by a common language. There is nothing as important as being able to trade in a common language. I'm speaking to you in English and I'm explaining you a lot of things. Can you imagine if you are exporting to Italy, you're exporting to Spain, and you are exporting to, say, for example, Denmark? You would have to have a good understanding of 3 different EU languages in order for you to trade in those markets. Now, one of the benefits of the Commonwealth market is that we already speak one common language. And most of our systems are almost very similar, you know, to there. So Brexit, post-Brexit, one of the strategies that the country was focusing on was to go back into the roots of our Commonwealth and begin to develop those markets. But you must understand that all the Commonwealth organizations in the UK are not business bodies. They are what you call social organizations. They don't have a lot of money put together, you know, that would enable them to straight away enable countries to trade, develop standards. So it's a long process before the Commonwealth market can be realized. So at the moment when we talk about, you know, exporting to the UK, Brexit, and whether we are going to be lowering the standards, from all the discussions I know and all the meetings that I participated in, that are going to get even harder, not even easier. Why did the European people put these standards in place? Because their first and foremost important requirement is to protect their people. And the way they protect their people is through regulations and standards. And those standards are also monitored, because I'm not just talking about port of entries and you meeting these standards in Uganda or whatever country you are exporting from. Once your product is on the shelf in this country, there are all sorts of inspectors that make sure that your product sitting on that shelf still meets the regulations and standards in terms of use by date, sell by date, best before date. It's labeled and correctly according to the requirement. So there's all sorts of policing still going on when your product is already in the market. Motok, for example, is coming here fresh. You're not going to have it placed on the supermarket when it is already half rotten and half black, you know, just because it managed to enter the port of entry. So there are inspectors locally that make sure that that product is still safe for the consumer to use. And they are not going to be, relaxing on these standards, because don't forget, we are not part of the EU, but we are still going to be part of the European Economic Commission. So the people, the movement of the people is still going to be the same, and the protection for the people are still going to be the same. And the UK was a big contributor to the current EU standards. If not, it's assumed, or it's been said that 60 to 70% of the EU regulations were actually formulated by the UK. So I don't think they're about to drop all these and begin to spend money on developing new regulations. That is my own personal thinking and what I see happening. So it's not going to be any easier. The question is, set your bar to that level that you can meet your EU standards, because don't forget, when your product is already in the UK, there are going to be opportunities for you, for exporters in UK like us, to export the same product to be the same standard to other EU countries like Germany, France, and Spain. So we'd still be requiring you to meet those standards in order for us to re-export the products to other countries. Edward, are you there?
Thank you so much, Perez.
There's so much to say, guys. There's so much. It's just, you know, this is not a 1 or 2 hour meeting. This is a 1 year meeting, as you can imagine.
Yeah, but it's very, very educative. I am seeing, of course, many faces I've not seen in a long time. I'm also seeing some very good friends of the Uganda-UK Convention. I've seen Mr. Ibrahim Bogere of KPG Group. You're welcome, sir. Please feel free to have your input as well. This is our conversation as a group. I think, Perez, you've done well to answer all the questions, the hands that have been raised. I will invite Ambassador Sylvia to share with us as our ambassador in the Republic of Ireland. What opportunities are you seeing for Ugandan exports, food exports? We are looking at agri-food industry. So what opportunities are you seeing for the Ugandan agri-food exporters? I know, of course, even outside the traditional cash crops. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edward Katende. Thank you, Ambassador John Mugelwa, to see you there. And because I'm the Honorable Consul of Uganda to Ireland here, and I'm actually working very hard with the High Commissioner in London and Ambassador John. Ambassador John has been to Ireland many times since he started in the UK, and we are working a lot actually on this area, and I'm very happy to hear this today, and I welcome everybody on the forum. Thank you very much to give me this opportunity to speak about agriculture. First of all, I think I'm happy that before the corona came around the end January, I was invited by the Department of Foreign Affairs here in Dublin and the Department of Agriculture, and they nominated me on the task force of the agriculture. And this task force, actually, I'm now following on Pelez, what she said, that Europe is we need to be at the standard, but Europe is working on a document, and not only a document, on working on Africa, Europe agenda for rural transformation. And that task force is headed by a European task force, but Ireland has taken that task force, and that's where I am part of that, on the agriculture, to see how Africa, Europe can work as partners, in full partners with Africa. And we're looking, actually, I went in as from Uganda. I was the only one from all the embassies here in Ireland, and I was actually very, very happy. So that is good for us to look, how can we bring Uganda on board as well? What can we bring in Ireland? But looking at Ireland, and Ambassador John will share, because he was here in September last year, we had a very good program on the Plowing Championship, which is bringing over 300,000 farmers here in Ireland and all over maybe Europe. They come together and bring the whole of agriculture here in Ireland. But to look at Ireland, what is Ireland? What does Ireland have? And how did Ireland develop their agriculture? The first thing Ireland, I think, developed not too long ago, but technology has brought a lot on board to build the agriculture here in Ireland. But when we go to see how Uganda can actually relate to Ireland is through cooperatives, because Ireland, to reach where they are, they have worked through cooperatives. And any business that wants to go to Uganda from Ireland, they want to build on that, to have a cooperative, to have a one voice, to speak together as farmers. And when it comes to standards and quality or package, we speak as a group, as group farmers, as cooperative, and that builds a lot in Ireland. Then what Ireland has is knowledge transfer. And actually Ireland is looking forward to see that we can work together with Uganda on the knowledge transfer. Ambassador John will add on that, because he has been here a few times and we have been discussing on that. How can Uganda benefit from what Ireland has? Ireland is feeding over 70 million people all over the world from what they produce here. Looking at what we are here, what we have in Uganda now, I think we can actually feed. I don't know how many millions of people we can feed if we put technology together, if we have irrigation around, if we have the cooperative, rural communities come together. I think there is a lot we can offer, and there is a lot we can learn from Ireland. And Ireland is open to come and support us. I have now 2 businesses. One business is cheese, and cheese businesses actually they are looking at, they were supposed to be in Uganda by September, October, but because of COVID-19, they can't do that until maybe next year. There is another business in milk, because Ireland is big in dairy farming, beef, milk, cheese. They are big here, and they are looking how can they partner with us. And I think we need to look into those areas very well. Maybe Ambassador John can add on that, or I don't know what you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador Sylvia. Ambassador John, are you able to add something? You've heard what Ambassador Sylvia is saying, and Mrs. Ocheng Perez, what she's shared about the opportunities not only in the UK but also across Europe. Do you have something else that you can add for the benefit of our people that are majorly agri SMEs? As you know, most of our people are either smallholder farmers or agricultural SMEs. So is there anything you can add to the conversation?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Katende, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you so much for organizing this important forum together with, of course, Madame Perez Ocheng, whom we've had occasion to meet, and she's doing a great job promoting exports, our products into this part of the world. And also to thank Mr. Mutenza through the UK-Uganda Business Forum. I just make 3 quick points. Of course, on behalf of Uganda High Commission, we engage with the Ugandan exporters and also the people who are trading here. We have a platform where we meet once every 3 months. Unfortunately, we haven't met in the recent past because of the current corona situation. But the 3 points I would like to make are these. The first one is that there is a great opportunity for our products, agro products, foodstuffs, fresh vegetables, fruits, dairy products, to access the European market, and particularly the UK market and the market in Ireland. I had one of the participants asking that, if some of our products are only to be consumed by our people, how big is the market? But I think Madame Ocheng pointed out, for example, that if you look at matoke, banana plantain, for example, it's not only Ugandans actually who are, or people from East Africa who are eating plantain, because now of the need to change to healthy living, many people are going into organic foods and moving away from some of these processed foods. So you find that the exports that we get of matoke are increasing, and the market is really there. Not only from Ugandans, but also from people from Africa, but people from the Caribbean, people from Asia. They're actually consuming a lot of these products, agro products that we have from Uganda. Just by way of giving you a global picture, I think the UK annually imports food worth 36 billion pounds. But from Africa, when we looked at the figures, I think it's only 5%. So you can see that there is a big opportunity in terms of exporting foodstuffs to the UK. And I think what we have seen during this COVID situation is that the food sector is actually very important. And I think our president in Uganda referred to it as one of the aspects of the real economy, because whereas other sectors of the economy can be adversely affected in situations like this, wherever you are, you would be assured of a ready market for food products. So this is an extremely important point to point out. So for Uganda, I think many of the participants who are watching us and who have participated are already seeing the opportunities that are there. But the three things that we need to focus on, and I think Madam Ocheng and some of the other participants have noted, is the issue of quality, because standards are extremely important here. And it's very important that, and we have had this discussion with Uganda Export Promotion Board and also the standards people within the country and exporters themselves. We have to make sure that right from the farm, right from the producers, they need to adhere to the standards so that when the products come here, they are good and they are not subjected to, because they are tested. And as Madam Ocheng pointed out, they are, for example, if it is red chilies and they find some pests there, they're going first of all to destroy the entire consignment at your own cost and again blacklist the country. So that's not good at all. And maybe the other thing that also we need to look at is the issue of the quantity, to be able to supply the required quantity in time. And again, this is something that is extremely important. As producers, whether you are large or small scale, I think it's important to organize yourselves in some kind of cooperative so that the supply, the amount required can be produced when it is required. And I think also the other important thing is to make sure that when the exports are being done, the paperwork is prepared in good time, so that by the time the assignment reaches at Heathrow, the preliminary paperwork has been done. We've had some issues, even recently. We had an exporter from Uganda who had a consignment of over 10 tons of produce from Uganda, and it was held for quite some time. I think it was almost 6 days. But the issue was initially that the paperwork didn't arrive in good time. So all those things are extremely important, but I think it is also, we had discussed this with Madam Ocheng when we met with the team that had come from Uganda to look at the opportunities. We had a team last year in September, which came and we went to the various, we went to Spitalfields Market here in London, we went to Smithfield Market in Birmingham, and everywhere you could see that the market for Ugandan products is there. But there are some challenges that we need to look at, especially issues of the quality, issues of packaging, the way we package our things. If you compare with the way other countries are packaging the product, we still have a lot to do there. And I think this is why forums like this, platforms like this are extremely important, so that you can hear from the practitioners, people like Madam Ocheng and others who are based here. We have KK Foods who are represented here, and others can share their practical experiences. Madam Sylvia Gavigan from Dublin talked about the opportunities that are there in Ireland. If you look at Ireland, what they have been able to achieve from their agriculture sector, it's incredible. But because they focus on quality, they do a lot of tracing, because I think the issue of traceability is extremely important. Because of the fear that governments here have about the concern, the priority that governments put on the health of their citizens. They want to be able to know that if this product is coming into this country, it has been produced in the right way, the sanitation is good, you can be able to trace, for example, if it is like Madam Ocheng said, if it's a package of bananas, it should be packed in such a way that there are some labeling that can be, this number can be traced to a farm right in Luwero or in Mbarara or Masaka, wherever it was produced. So these are some of the things that we have to look at, and of course it will require capacity, but in the meantime, the opportunities are there. The other challenge that has been there is the issue of the cost of freight. And I think this is maybe something that, I don't know whether I missed it, but in terms of the logistics for getting the exports into this market, I think the last time we had a discussion with the Ugandan business people here who are importing foodstuffs here and distributing them. They told us that the average cost for a kilogram of produce is like 1.3 from Uganda, but for the other countries, Kenya and Rwanda, which have direct flights, I think it's slightly less. So that makes it very expensive. And if you have very few people exporting on themselves, and they may not get the benefit of this scale. So maybe Madam Ocheng could throw some more light on this. But for Uganda, we definitely hope that when Uganda Airlines gets this the Airbus and starts the international flights, London is going to be one of the priorities. The process is already underway, and we are hoping that cargo freight will be a priority, because now we are seeing increased demand for Ugandan agricultural products into the UK market. Regarding the quality, we do not think that the UK standards are going to be any less stringent even after they have left the EU. So the advice would be that we still aim to have very high standards, to meet those high standards, so that then we can be able to, even if it means fast exporting to the other countries, then it would be easier. I think in the past, most of the exports, agriculture, were going through, I think, Belgium, and then they would be transshipped here, because I think the regime, inspection regime there was less stringent. That may not happen now when the UK leaves it has already left the EU. So I think these are some of the points I would like to make, but we had discussed as a mission with Madam Ocheng. I think it would be good at some point to have an arrangement where, okay, this is a good platform, but we can organize, say, a 2-day seminar where we can have people like Madam Ocheng and others, and they talk directly to the producers of some of these products that need to be exported here, so that they get to know the do's and don'ts, so that when the products come here, they stand a good chance of penetrating the market and earning us the much needed foreign exchange. Otherwise, the opportunities are there, and we are working very hard with the Uganda Export Promotion Board, and even individual exporters within Uganda. And our offices are always open. I think I'll stop here. Once again, thank you very much, and hope you are all keeping well under these difficult circumstances wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador John. You've touched something on freight charges. I hear that one of the biggest drivers of freight charges for Uganda is mainly the ground charges, ground fees at Entebbe. Perhaps as our ambassador using economic diplomacy, we would probably ask you to help us look into that. But the key issue as we talk about flying is again one of the key mega trends globally that is affecting us, because which is the issue of sustainability. For example, European consumers have had. I was in Germany in January, and the issue with avocado was that a lot of the avocado is being flown in, and the consumer is starting to prefer avocado that was shipped in because of its impact in terms of carbon credit. Yeah. That puts us at a disadvantage if we are to deal with fresh produce, and the only option we have is to fly with Uganda Airlines or somebody else. And that in a way, the trend is kind of changing against us. Is there a way you guys, either Ambassador John, Ambassador Sylvia, or Perez, whether this is something that you have seen in where you are, because I saw that in the UK, I mean in Germany, but I also spoke to one avocado importer in Ireland, in Dublin, and they were saying something similar, that the future may be working against all imported, all flown in fruits. But is this something that resonates with you guys wherever you are, and is this something that we can do something about?
Maybe if I can just quickly make 2 points. The first one about the handling charges at Entebbe. This is something that has been highlighted to us by some of the importers here, Ugandan business people. And this is something that we have also already highlighted to the government authorities in Uganda. It's something that should be addressed. Secondly, about the freight and the method of delivering the products to the market. Of course, it is cheaper if you can deliver by sea, but it also depends on the perishability of the product. That is why most of the time it's the air transport that is being used. But I think we need to look further into processing some of these products so that they can have a longer shelf life, as Madame Ocheng pointed out. I had one of the participants saying, you know, we have very sweet pineapple, but when we try to export it, they don't like it. First of all, it is very big. You have to appreciate the fact that some of the families here are nuclear families. So if you bring this 5-kilogram pineapple, somebody will not probably be able to, you know, first of all, it will be expensive, but it is also very big. And after they cut it, maybe after refrigerating it, it will not be as fresh. But I've seen that there is a way you can have some of these fruits sliced, put in some kind of preservative which is acceptable, and then it can be sold, and that can have a longer shelf life. So the idea of processing so that we can have products that can stay longer on the shelf, I think is extremely important, and ties in with R&D, which research and development, which Madame Ocheng talked about. But in the meantime, we are looking at the low-hanging fruits. We can still be able to export greater volumes the way our products are. There was also the issue of avocado. There was one of the participants who said, you know, we like our avocado the way it is juicy. Yes, it is, but it also has a shorter shelf life. If you look at the other type of avocado, which is Hass, they're smaller, but they last longer even without preservation on the shelf. And I think we should be looking at some of these trends and adapting. If this is what the market wants, because the customer is king. If that is what the market wants, then we have to adapt to be able to satisfy the market and grow our exports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perez, do you have a comment on sustainability and how we can adapt?
God, I've got 1,001 comments, you know. Suggestions, but you know me, I can draw it from both academic as well as, you know, practical experience in the market. But first of all, one thing that Uganda Tech, for example, is the fact that you still have natural land with healthy soil. If you look at where this market is moving now, there's going to be impact measurement on the health of soil. You see, now we are talking about health and safety of the crop that is ready to eat. They are now adding additional measurements. I don't know, Banozi, if you know, for some of the EU regulations on measuring the soil health. So this is going to be added onto the standard, and you must prove that the soil on which you're growing your crop is healthy in terms of the nutrients in the soil, in terms of the, what is it called, the insects that live in the soil, you know, because they are talking about the naturalness, they are talking about biodiversity, You know, they're talking about land degradation. And some of the ways they are going to do this is to put a regulation in place that ensures the producers can prove that their soil is healthy to produce a crop. And by healthy, it doesn't mean that you are adding, nowadays what we do is if your soil is not healthy, you're adding the manures and you're adding the what we call these chemicals we add onto the soil when we're growing. What are they called?
Fertilizers.
Fertilizers, exactly. You know, so there's a big move from the fertilizer manufacturing companies, from natural fertilizers, organic fertilizers, whatever description they can give it, to prove that their product is safe. Sorry, I've lost you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. So your one problem that I know you will not be found to be not meeting is the issue of soil health, and this is a big.
Oh, it has muted, huh?
Expansions of production that would allow for sustainable production. And sustainable production is not that you're growing the crop at the same time. You could be staggering. You could have a small piece of land, but you're staggering and rotating the crop. You know, so there are several technologies that you can use. Some of them technically simple. And then there's the issue of investment. And this is why I want to stress to both the ambassadors. You know, we can talk until tomorrow, until cows come, until whatever comes, but if there is no investment in the agricultural sector, all of this is just going to be talk, and we'll all die, and then our children will be talking about this, and then our grandchildren will talk about this, and then our great-great-great-children will talk about it. We must put our money where our mouth is. When we are talking about setting up cooperatives, which is a model that has been recommended by both the ambassadors, and personally, I would also recommend the cooperative strategy and model. If you look at Denmark, Denmark has grown, it's leading when you talk about food innovation, supply and sustainability. In Europe, Denmark is leading. One of the biggest suppliers of milk and dairy products all over Europe is Arla Foods. Arla is a cooperative. And these cooperatives own universities, they own research and innovation centers, they own their own marketing bodies and companies in different parts of Europe. So when you're looking at successful model, it's going to be a cooperative model that actually functions and operates as a private sector. So it's not just going to be the normal cooperative where we come and there's chairman and the secretary and everybody wants a role and it's going to be a functioning cooperative that has different roles, including marketing, including strategy and innovation. And all this require investment. So what I'm talking about here is, let's begin looking at a consortium approach. Yes, we have the cooperatives, strengthen them, strengthen their roles, strengthen their ability to finance them. You know, the cooperatives should also be willing to take risk by taking, borrowing money, taking loans and investment. It's not just grants given to cooperatives. The cooperatives are going to have to function as a private sector in order for them to succeed, because they are not just investing in the crop. They're investing in the whole supply chain to assure that the product reaches the consumer in a safe way, but there's also sustainable production. So investment is very key. Research, development, and innovation. I'm telling what is driving Europe today. As Madame has said about Ireland. Ireland has the biggest innovation centers when you talk about agriculture produce. I've visited it myself, you know, and they do a lot of research for us for our new products. But then that research now filters down into the business sector. So it's not just research that sits in the lab. This is the reverse of what we do in Africa. Our research centers are either funded by government or funded by some development agencies with their own agendas. And that research never filters down to the farmer who needs it in order to improve their crop. So it is going to force the farmer cooperatives to have their own research departments, have their own laboratories and tests. So it's a whole of a lot of investment. required to make it work. So if we do not put money in this, you know, we are just, as I said, forever going to talk until our great children will stop talking about Africa and they forget about it. So technology, research, innovation. Madame also talked about knowledge transfer partnerships. UK is really so much willing to partner with Africa to transfer the knowledge. But the question is, where are the institutions that are ready to partner with the UK, Europe, or Ireland, or whoever is willing, in order so that they can have that knowledge transferred down to them. And to be honest, this is knowledge that is already available. Literally sitting in some research university, some research organization that are willing. And listen, I'm going to whisper this. Do you know that a lot of the research in agriculture that is done in Europe is done using African crops? I was in Australia in 2018, and we were in one of the biggest research laboratories, and they were doing research on banana. What do you call it? Matoke banana. And what they're doing is they want a matoke banana that has vitamin C and A, B, so more similar to say, for example, orange fried sweet potatoes. They have a whole research center growing your own matoke banana in Australia. Listen to me. Your matoke banana is going to Australia fortified to make it more nutritious. What they're going to do is, if Africa cannot supply them with this particular crop that they've researched on, they are going to release land and they are going to start growing it, because now they know the ecological conditions that this crop will do well in. They know the health benefits of fortified matoke with vitamin C. They will give money to their own people. They will grow their own bananas and they will eat their own matoke bananas, which does not come from Uganda. And so if Uganda does not get its act right, it will reach a time when your matoke will not have a market, because they have their own market in Australia for your very own matoke that they came and did research on. So do you understand where I'm coming from? And I hope you can hear the frustration in my voice. You know, I do a lot of research at the university at academic level, and it pains me to see how much of African crops are used for research and how much of this knowledge is lying there unutilized. Because nobody is coming forward to say, can we use what you've already researched on, you know, and come and apply it. Applied research is the biggest opportunity also in this country. So your cooperatives, your farm organizations or groups or whatever you call them, you know, how are they partnering internationally to get knowledge that they already exists without necessarily putting money? All this needs consortium order organization. My brothers and sisters, if there's anything you hear from me today, this is my closure words, is we've got to put our acts together. It's not just the farmers that are going to break through into the market. Our researchers are going to have to work with us. Our logistic companies, exporters, and transport vehicles are going to work with us. When we talk about warehousing and storage, we are going to have to find optimum temperatures in order for us to store our crop both in the country as well as out of the country. I always give this example, and if Willy is sitting here, I'm sure he's feeling, he's fidgeting on his seat. When I order 7 tons of oranges from Spain, Spain is just some few kilometers above Africa. That's why I'm choosing this as an example. That product will be on my market shelf before I close. What's the time now? In London now, it's about 10 minutes to 8. By 9 o'clock, it will be on my stand. And I placed the order in Spain, right, written in Spanish. I've spoken to some Spanish guy in some Spanish warehouse. How did it fly? They didn't fly it in. The crop was already here. If I'm going to order matoke from Uganda today, I'm sorry, I don't want to even narrate how long it will take. Or I get to the exporter go find the farmer in Tororo. The Tororo guy has to carry it in some truck all the way to Entebbe. It's going to be sorted. 3 days have gone, prices have changed. So this is some of the competitive advantages we need to organize ourselves. If we are going to be successful in this market, we have to have a presence here. And our presence here is not just about researching the markets and the trends, but it's physically our products are present here. You know, you order matoke, tell me how many tons you want. And I tell you, when do you want it? I want it by 8 o'clock in the next 7 minutes. I've already pressed a button, our truck is delivering your matoke. Not when I press the button is when you're trying to find some farmers in Entebbe and try to organize. And you find Brussels Airlines is full up, there's no space. So you can't fly your products in. It's gonna be sitting there for another 3 days, you know. So it's organizing ourselves, and this requires investments. I'm sorry to have to say this to you, but we've got to put money in it. And I know somebody said, oh, what can you buy from us? I'm putting money where I think I can also mitigate my risk. If you talked to me 10 years ago, I was so socially impact oriented. I wanted to help everyone. And I realized that it's not going to happen. You know, because as an investor, you begin to think of return on investment. You don't want to be losing your money training a group of farmers who will do one thing when you're there, and then tomorrow the cooperative is doing something else for another USAID agency, and you're going back there and there's no crop. You've invested money in training ethics, you know, of how to do business, due diligence. These are things that we lack. You know, but in the forum, somebody talked about, you know, losing a contract because of due diligence and ethics. You know, you promise to do something and you know that you can work hard really to do it, you know, but we decide that, oh, after all, we'll make excuse that it's seasonal. You know, there was too much rain, like now it's raining in Kenya, there's floods, and who cares? My son goes to Tesco, he wants strawberries. He doesn't care whether it was raining in South Africa and there are no bridges. He just wants to go there and find strawberries on that shelf. The buyer for strawberries is only going to buy from the person who has committed to make sure that strawberries on that shelf. Whether there is, you know, that black cloud that stopped planes from flying many years ago. Can you remember the volcanic ash? You know how many people lost their contracts with the Tesco's of this world? They don't care whether there's volcanic ash and the planes can't fly. They're not expecting you to be harvesting your strawberry and trying to fish it across here. They're expecting your strawberry to be some few kilometers away from a central distribution system. So you must come to this market and understand how does this market operate? What sort of efficiencies do they assume? You know, every day we see white men that come for tourism and we think, oh, these people are really efficient. They do things, the way they do the things when they come as tourists is what they expect you to do when you're supplying them with a crop or food. Do I make myself clear? So efficiency, we must be efficient. There's no excuse. There's no room for it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just taking it on you.
Madam Perez, Mr. Katende.
Yes.
Can I come in a bit just to say what Miss Perez said about funding? I heard that I was going to mention about funding, because if we are looking at agriculture, we need to see that our farmers they have access to funding. But I think there are ways. Maybe this is another day's talk. We need to plan and organize. How can we bring this as a well organized, as Perez says? We need to organize and find out where can we. The government might not do on its own, but we need to find out. There is a lot of funding around Europe, which is looking at farmers. But how can we access that? How can a cooperative in Uganda access the funding from Ireland to support them, and actually they reach that value, that quality of a product? So we need, I think, another day's discussion, because Ireland, to reach where we are, it was the funding that came from Europe. And then that is just a story now to talk about funding.
That is correct. I agree with you that we need to talk about funding. Funding and financing, you know, both, you know, whether grants or majorly just as investment where the investor expects a return on investment. And there's more where they expect a return than opposed to where they're just putting the money as grant. The question is what assurance do we have to give them to even get them interested? You know, where you live in Ireland, just across in Gazi Island, this is where the monies of Europe is. And I meet a lot of people who say, you said, I used to think of Africa, but the challenges of investing in Africa are many. It's not just the cooperative. Let me give you another example. The issue of sustainable energy. If we are going to talk about technologies, we are talking about freezing, for example, freezing avocados. We are talking about temperature control so that we are able to ship the produce instead of air freight. Why do we air freight? Because we want to get here in the shortest time possible. If we are going to go by sea, instead of the crop being on air for 8 hours or 7 hours, it's going to be on sea for 28 days. You need technology, you need bulking, you know, and all these are going to cost money. Who are we going to interest to put their money in it and guarantee that there's going to be a return? No investor wants to just put their money, you know, to lose it. The ones that give us money in the name of grants have their own agendas. And that is why all the monies that we get from USIU, USAID, or whatever it is, they have their own, what they want to achieve, their own outcomes, expectations, and everything. So when they come, you're only doing what they want to do. But you are sitting there as a farmer, you saying, I want to do this. So they say, I want to develop standards. I want to build warehouses. I want to empower my community to have an effective cooperative organization. They might not have the money for putting in an effective cooperative organization. They might have a grant for you to go and grow apples or instead of growing pineapples. So how do you get yourself to organize to an extent that you say no to grants and say yes to financing and funding? And then you begin to have your own personal country or consortium or cooperative strategy to get into the market. We are not going to be in this market by just expecting somebody to put in money in it. We are going to have to take the risk to make sure we take the money and we can pay the lender or the investor back. And then we are beginning to talk, because then we'll have a different work ethics, you know, for us to achieve what we want to achieve. But I know this is hurting, but I wish I could put it any simpler and any easier so that people can just go home and pack a whole load of beans and send to her tomorrow. But it's not that easy.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Perez. I just kept quiet to let you talk and talk and talk, because the comments on this side, this is super. So there is a question on trust, which was sent on the chat a while back. Now that you're talking about finance globally is grounded on trust. Mm-hmm. In our region, in our country, for example, the farmer doesn't trust the middleman doesn't trust the farmer. They don't trust the government, they don't trust the bank, they don't trust the exporter. So there's cheating here and there. And one of the key questions here is, in your journey, how do you build that trust by your own company, Sakoma, but also across the supply chain and your suppliers? So that's the key question. But while you answer, I also wanted to bring in the issue of branding and marketing. And I know Willy Mutenza has been a very big name when it comes to community marketing, especially for the African diaspora in the UK. I wanted to bring him in as well to join you in the conversation on marketing and branding. How we can up our game, because we have talked about money, we have talked about standards, but again, when you look at some of our products, even when we have all these things, we still fall short of the tests or in terms of branding and appearance, things like that. So I want to really, when Perez has answered the question on trust, I want you to come in to start steering the conversation towards marketing and branding and how we can up our game so that we can compete with everybody else. Perez, I think you go first.
Listen, you know, in my language, there's something they say, God, I don't know how I'm going to say this in English. Ogoegwalepike. It's like when you put the frog in its water, you know, like you give it its natural environment to thrive and to do everything. So I don't want to translate it in English, but listen, this is something that I love talking about, and I hope I'm a good example and a good mentor by the things that I do. First and foremost is the thirst for knowledge. You've got to want to know what others know that you don't know. So when I'm talking about research and innovation, I sound like I have a whole big research department just dedicated to sarcoma. It is not the case. My research is on a day-to-day basis, is also on partnering with the people who already have the knowledge. I partner with a lot of universities, I partner with big manufacturers, bigger, 3,000 bigger than I. But I find my foot into these places so that I can learn. I'm not necessarily sitting back and thinking I'm too small to even interact with this level of people. You know, when I'm exhibiting in Dubai, for heaven's sake, I am a very small company when I'm exhibiting, but I think because I want to understand how other people do it and where they do it. And then I come and apply this knowledge into my company, you know. And then most importantly, what we do is we have made it, it's not a policy, it's natural for us to have committed that we are going to be ethical in the supply of our food business, for food products. You know, the line between being ethical and unethical and wanting to be tempted is so small. It's so thin. Let me give you an example. Last year, I imported 10 metric tons of sweet potato flour from Kenya that turned out to be having high level of aflatoxin. You know, and the story is very long because, you know, when you ask them for the test locally, the lab gives you a different thing. You bring it here, the lab does their own test, and it's a whole different two results, you know, that you get. And so sitting in my office, 10 metric tons of sweet potato flour is something worth between 25 to 30,000 pounds. It's not a small amount of money. And I'm thinking here, I have the chance to be very crafty, you know, because I'm thinking like, okay, I can take the risk and hope that some inspector somewhere will not find my packaged food somewhere along the supply chain. Of course, I know my manufacturers won't take it because they have their own labs, they do additional tests on it. So if the question is, have you decided you want to do the right thing? It's the right thing that will drive you and will open up those markets and the trust. People deal with me because they trust that if I say, I'm going to give you this, it is gonna come today. You know, if we say, okay, we're gonna have some 20 metric tons of matoke, you know, supplied to Costco, for example, are we going to do everything we can, even if it means that we are going to lose money? It's not always about profitability. You might operate below profits for the next 5, 3, or even 4 years, just breaking even or even making losses. But you're building that trust. You're building that relationship, not just with one group of people, but all the people who want to help you, the people who want to give you knowledge. Do you know that one word from a trusted individual can open a whole market for you? You know, I have some of my Indian friends, you know, the people, when you talk about, say, for example, our chef ambassadors, you know, they just give you a number and say, go to Whole Foods and say, I sent you. Why would they give me a number of somebody that they know is going to do exactly what they said when I turn up there? Because they trust me. So can we build this issue of trust in the whole strategy of what we are doing? You know, so if we don't trust one another, let's not try to work together because it's pointless. We are wasting one another. We need one another to succeed. And when I mean one another, we need one another in the cooperatives, we need one another in the research center, we need one another in the academic center, we need one another in our exporters, we need one another in our airlines and shippers, we need the contribution of our ambassadors, and we must believe that they have the interest of everyone at heart. Otherwise, we are not going to get this fruit, all of us. But if we work together, at least we can get a small portion and we can share. Sorry, guys. Why did you invite me in this forum?
Thank you, Perez. Willy, are you available? Let's switch to branding and marketing. Perez, I love the branding of your products, but as you know, Willy, for decades has been talking about branding. We want to hear from you, Willy, about branding and marketing and some of the products that you currently see in the markets that you think you can easily do as Ugandans.
Yes, just give me a moment. I'm just trying to start my camera here because I wanted to show you something. I think. Katende? I think, hello, Katende? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to start my camera here to get in trouble, but I think let me use this one. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Amen. First of all, thank you for joining us. My name is Willy Mutenza, and I'm the organizer of the UgandaUK convention and the host of this event in partnership with the Uganda Agribusiness Alliance. And thank you for our speakers, Mr. Katendo, of course, the moderator, and the President Cheng. Mine is just a very simple one. First of all, I'm a specialist in packaging. Probably this is one of my field. And there's somebody who actually asked about frozen food. And during this COVID, a lot of new products has been introduced in our supermarkets. And we are seeing a lot of our brothers. Now, I think if you go on the screen, on my screen, can you see my screen? Can anyone zoom in my screen? Can anyone see my screen? Can anyone see my screen? I want to show you something.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
So this is a crushed ginger by one of our Ugandan agents based in Leicester. So he started this during the COVID time. He packages not only ginger, he packages lemon and all sorts of things. And then this is another kind of ginger. So why I'm talking about this is we need also to start being innovative and look beyond the fresh products. So I believe if we put the infrastructure in place, we could start exporting frozen products. Look, this is a cassava, also packed by another Ugandan Asian, also based in Leicester. So this cassava, he gets them from Barbados, but there's another product, he call them muogo chip. He puts Uganda muogo, but I know he gets them from Barbados. So literally, I'm just trying to tell you the market. I hear a lot of people actually ask me about UK and European market. The market is there. Now, when you look at it, of course, we know about standard and quality control, but what's wrong? But hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
you can hear you. So yes, we
I can hear you.
Accessing the market. The markets actually they are there, because I remember when Ghana, I think Dr. Mugasi is on the meeting. I hosted him from Uganda and a few ministers. I think President, you were there. You came to meet them, and I was trying to present what Ghana government was doing to its farmer and the exporters. What Ghana government did, they put a grant and they supported Ghanaian farmers and exporters. They brought them to UK. We took them around to packaging companies, to the market, like the speed of feeding market, so that before they started exporting, actually they came and experienced the market. What do the Britons actually want? And that's why when you go now to ASIDA, you find Ghana has got over 30 products. I think, Perez, you've seen Ghana has got fufu, and almost all kinds of Ghana products are now stocked in UK markets. And one thing you have to know, these products from Ghana are not just basically targeting the Ghanaians. You know, white people are adventurous eaters, so they could start, for them, they want to test a lot of food. So this is a very big market that we can start accessing by being innovative, and we are here. And I think I also urge people to keep on actually engage us privately. We can help you in one way or the other to access this market, advising you the best way. Because what I've realized in Uganda, people just grow things and then start looking for market. But you need to start, first of all, before you start looking for market, you need to first know what are the demand of the market. And another thing which I had also, I think Perez talked about, the accessing to finance and funding. One thing I've realized especially with our Ugandan farmers, most of them are not bankable. So we need to know what makes a farmer bankable. You need to tick all the boxes that a venture capitalist or a funder actually needs to come and tick all the boxes. Do you have all the company structure, all the nitty-gritty that makes a company bankable? Having 100 acres of cassava doesn't make you a bankable. So these are some of the things actually we need to teach people. What makes you bankable so that you can start attracting funding. Funding is there. At the convention, I think those who came at the convention, you saw Mr. Nyeko has attracted funding from Vatican and from Coca-Cola and from a lot of funders. But because they made their company bankable. So I think for me, I will not take a lot of your time, but I just want to show you some of my frozen stuff. I've got a lot of frozen stuff in my freezer, and most of these products are imported or packaged here by our Ugandan Asians. So we need also to start taking advantage of these markets and take advantage of our being here, because actually we are hosting some of these meetings, not because we are farmers, but because we want to give back. For us, we've managed to succeed in this market. We know how to maneuver the market. So literally for me, I'm just here as a matter of giving back and try to show you we can help you, please, because we know this terrain. We know how we can help you too. Perez is here. She's one of those people who have succeeded in this terrain, and she can really help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Willie. Perez, on the issue of packaging, branding, and what have you, in our world, this is a very expensive venture. And I have seen the packaging that you use. It seems to be top of the range. How do you go about this kind of investment?
Edward, now you're starting another topic. Don't forget, I have masters in food innovation and packaging is one of the things that I've studied. But one of the things about packaging, packaging has moved from its role as containment, but packaging is part of a food product. So one of the challenges first that we'd have, I'm sure Willy mentioned it somewhere, but maybe we didn't get it correctly, is that Europe considers packaging as part of the food product. So there are also a whole lot of regulations about food packaging. So they've got to meet certain standards to make sure that there is no, what do we call it? The correct word is immigration. There's no migration of chemicals from the packaging into the food product. So they have very specific standards on the food, on packaging. But as I said, this is a whole load of another workshop that we can do for you. Practically, we need to know what are the products that are ready for packaging. So you can't give packaging information as a blanket, you know, the information. We can show the branding, the opportunities, but then I would have to know the product that you have to package, you know, what are the sort of chemicals we are going to use as preservatives that are allowed into the market that we are going to take into. If it's frozen, what is the sort of shelf life we are looking at to make sure that the food is still safe to eat when it is shipped? But also we are going to be looking at what are the global issues around sustainability and the regulations that are coming up. For now, you know, simple things like even cardboard packaging that we use for bringing matoke and the sweet potatoes here. I'm sure many of you have seen it. There are other technologies that would now allow you to strengthen it, but then nobody will allow you to come with it because it's not biodegradable. You can't recycle it. So there's the issues of recyclability of the packaging that you have to use. So it's a case-by-case basis, as I said. You know, if you want the technical advice, I would need to know what is the crop that you want to package, what is the shelf life, is it frozen, is it processed, is it fresh, what are the technologies available which go together with the packaging. You know, there's packaging, but there's also another technology that either adds things like carbon nitrate into the product, or what is called modified atmospheric packaging that creates like a natural environment in the packaging. But before we even go on to the big packaging technologies, the question is the availability of power, electricity, that is going to enable you to use some of these packaging. 99% of the technologies you're going to use for frozen foods will require some sort of consistent energy. And the last thing you want to get into a frozen food energy business, a frozen food business without sustainable supply of energy. Because, you know, where once you have quality standards you're working towards, you've invested in the packaging and in the innovations, and then you're going to have power failures or power cuts or power, what is it called, when they ration it, and you don't have absence of power, then your product quality is going to be interfered with if you don't have consistent power to maintain that product in the temperature that you have set for it. And then you ship the product all the way to Europe. And just like they do with fresh produce, there are all sorts of standards at port of entries as well. So the question is, what are the other alternatives available for you to be able to package those frozen food products, for example, and still get into this market? And these are the discussions we should now be having, either individually or as groups of people that feel we are ready for this stage of innovation, or we want advice to put the systems in place. And then of course prioritizing. Do you want packaging? Do you want crop development? Do you want logistics? Do you want warehousing? Because even that packaging will require a warehousing system. You know, where you store it, where you label it, to meet all the requirements. So I think that there's room for so many other conversations we need to have. And as we said, we are here in the market, myself and Willy. At Sakoma, you know, we are glad to help, to share our knowledge, or to charge for it if we need to. But we have a wealth of knowledge. At the moment, I don't know if we were to charge for what we've done today in terms of knowledge transfer, as Madame Sylvia said, I'm sure we'll be getting you a very large invoice. But take advantage when you have people like us in the market. A time is coming when the next generation is not going to be interested. They would not be sitting here talking to you about what they know. So whilst you still have us here, you know, and we have the interest of our countries at heart, and we want to share the knowledge, because at the end of the day, you want to look back and say, how many people did you help to lift back with the knowledge you have? Knowledge shared is really important, you know, again. So I would encourage ourselves to get organized. We've started this group. Let something come out of it. I hate to be a talking shop, you know, where we come, we talk, and then we need to, Edward, please come out with some action points. Are we going to focus on packaging? Are we going to focus on fresh produce and mobilizing the farmers? Or are we going to do the finance? What are we going to do to make sure that something comes out of it? I hate to be called to this forum again and just talk, you know. So the help is here. We've got the network. We've got all the linkages, whether it's with financial institutions or with investors, or whether it's with the knowledge transfer universities, whether it is you just coming here to visit and to see what we are talking about, whether it is us coming to you, to Uganda, to do demonstration, to begin to assess where do we start from, you know, it's where do we start from, who do we start with, you know, and then make some progress. So another year down the line, we will look back and say it was worth all it. So there's, as I said, there's a whole lot of topics, but let's narrow down to the specifics of what are the priorities to kickstart that journey to exporting to Europe?
Perez, thank you so much. I think we are now nearing the end of our meeting. I like you are saying, we have a number of topics to consider. But for those that are just joining us, we've been here for over almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And time flies when you don't realize that time is flying when you're actually enjoying yourself. It's actually coming to almost 2.5 hours. But we as Uganda Agribusiness Alliance and Uganda-UK Convention, this partnership is actually about talking. It would mean business. And we want to see both capital, Ugandan diaspora capital, coming to the Ugandan agri-food industry, but also the skills and knowledge to come and empower our people. But as we close, Perez, I want to ask,
Mr. Katende,
yes.
Before you close, I have here Dr. Stephen. He's a Ugandan, been working with NARO, and he's on forum here. He's actually helping me a lot to bring all the avenues here in Ireland to take them to Uganda, and he's online. I wonder whether you can give him a 1 minute. I don't know what he can say, but he started his PhD here in Ireland 5 years ago. He went back to Uganda, but Ireland called him back to help them with some work here. He'll be going back to Uganda. He has a lot of knowledge for us, for Uganda, and for the country. I wonder, do you have a minute to put him on? Or it can be another day.
Yeah, I could also ask specific questions. I know it is very good that Stephen, you're in Ireland, and I am extremely impressed with the model at Chagski on research and development. What is it that you have picked? I like things like genomics and the models that have come up with, especially on the dairy and beef sector. What is it that Stephen, as a Ugandan who has worked in NARO and you're now in Ireland, you see these things. What is it that you think we can do together to get even to half of what Irish agri-food industry is, especially in terms of research and development?
Hello, is he on? Is he on?
Hello, Stephen, are you there?
Yes, please. So you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, we can.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I was shocked. I didn't know this meeting, but Sylvia kept on saying, join the meeting. And I'm glad to be in this meeting. I didn't know. I've just come on. I've been doing some few things and I was tired. But the few things I've had, I think it's a great initiative. I think it's good. That is going to help most of our farmers and businesses in Africa. I think it's very nice. But one thing, I'm going to summarize that over time, the last speaker, this lady was called who? She had interesting things to say. But one thing is that if we don't look at holistic things in terms of that business, that we have knowledge of the technologies, that we have the knowledge of the market, that we have the knowledge of all those brought together. What Chagas actually, I visited, while I was here, I had the chance to work with Chagas a bit. But you see what they do, most of the issues that we have in Africa are the standards. And because we are not stable, we keep on jumping on this business and on the other business. Now, when someone sees that you are doing a lot of work here, you are exporting, you are doing what, and then they also want to join and export, but without knowing that there are issues that are needed. So maybe as this group, knowledge-based production and processing for export is very important. And that's what I've seen with Chagas, that they use this model. which also narrow can also come in. Actually, there is a food biosciences and agribusiness, and also Makere, there is also food science. They can also help in terms of making or putting together the standards for those want to export. But my whole issue is that can you organize and physically be there and have meet those who want to do the export market, so that maybe you have a lot of time to go through the standards, and then you also, if for instance like Uganda, also need to come together with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards and also the Uganda Industrial Research Institute, and also NARO and Makere, I think, and that would be enough. So like here, what currently I'm doing, they called me to, you know, there's this diary processing technology. They've been producing some of the products out of their diary. But then of recent, I think they have a problem with the production and quality. So I'm helping them to develop models that are going to improve their production, but also to foresee the future production so that they don't have the same problems again. So I'm saying this, that once this platform is helping traders to do commercial farming, then you need, that's why I talked of holistic, that you need those items or things that are going to bring out the sustainability, so that you don't go forth and backward trying to help them again. So I'm saying that umbrella, you need to come together and help. I mean, so that we, as the last lady said, that we don't keep on talking here.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. I'm being pressed here to end, but we will continue the conversation. We have a UG Agri-Food WhatsApp group, and so we will continue the conversation on the WhatsApp group. We also have a Facebook page. Mr. Willy Mutenza, please share the link on the chat so that colleagues can see and join the conversation online. But before we close, I will ask our ambassadors to give us a closing word. But also, before you start, you do that, Perez, I need to ask one last question, which is the question of business continuity in light of COVID-19. A number of exporters here in Uganda have been badly hit. And I know you as a person, an importer in the UK, your supply chain somehow has been affected. How are you coping?
My supply chain has been affected, but I've got what we call a business interruption plan. And don't forget that our business operates in two spaces, in the fresh produce sector, but in the processing sector. And what we've done is merge the two operations so that our losses in the fresh produce section is mitigated by processing. But what would be, that's why I said focusing on a crop that we understand really benefits us. But what we find now is the consumer is willing to pay the price for whatever produce that they already use. They are convinced it's natural. We are continuing to supply amidst all the challenges. Because the challenge is not just air freighting the product here. It's actually posting it, delivering it at the moment. You know, what used to work before, deliveries to places like Portsmouth, Scotland, or Ireland have all been interrupted. So what is the continuity plan that we have put in place that still enables the consumer or the buyers to be able to operate with us? But then we are not just sitting on our laurel. We are looking at all the other, putting the research and innovations that we have put in place. So what we've said is extending the shelf lives of the products, the technologies that we already have in place that extend the shelf life. So it's not just challenges at the market, you know, locally for the producers, but also for us when we come in here to continue the continuously supply. I think the COVID will, when it ends, as I believe it will, honestly, I don't think it will go forever, despite all the challenges we have and the uncertainties we have. What we need to do is spend time now to prepare ourselves. There's going to be new opportunities in the market, especially in the health and wellness space. So in Uganda, maybe one of the things you'll be thinking is, don't think about the traditional sweet potatoes and what is it called? Matoke. But it's amazing when your food scientists tell you how some of your foods can be an answer to COVID-19. I'll just give you one tip. Promise me you'll not tell anyone else at this forum. Can I see everybody's hand to say promise?
Have my word.
Yeah, okay, good. If I hear it,
Yes, I promise. We promise.
Yes, listen, you see, you have this fruit called jackfruit. I know it's massive in weight, you know, when you look at it, but jackfruit is going to be a superfood for the next consumer in Europe, because it is a high protein content. When you're talking about now, they're developing what they call plant-based protein, or they're talking about who has eaten impossible meat? But no, they have eaten impossible meat, the plant-based meat. That they are using plant-based food products and protein to develop. Jackfruit has a high content of protein, and this crop is going to be on demand like no one's business. If you can make sure that you grow this crop or harvest and package it and bring it into this market, because the consumer already knows the health benefit of it, and there's going to be a scramble of it.
Yeah, virtual packaging is ideal actually for
how to package it is ideal. So that's one secret between us. There are 100 people who are here today. Please don't let it go out. Let one of us benefit from this. And then I can give you future tips on the trends of what other crops that are going to be demanded. And you can just get yourself ready. And by September, we will find that we are servicing a whole new market space. So don't overly worry yourself about what you have now. You worry about the new opportunities that are opening up in the market now, you know, because it's going to be a new whole world with a new consumer focus on health and wellness and all sorts of things. And you want to be in that space for now that you're in this forum.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Our ambassadors, your closing remarks within 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sylvia, I want to go first. Can you go
let
first,
me
please?
go first, and the ambassador, you close, please.
Okay.
Yeah, my last bit, just I would love to see that we work together, because working together is going to bring all our energies as a group. If it's a cooperative, I can't emphasize that enough. This is our time as Africa, where that COVID hasn't reached to what has happened in Europe or America. Let's use this time to plan, to see where the investments are and where the funding is, to come and support us. But I think the funding or the investment will support us as a group, as a cooperative, will produce more than an individual. Except if we have, it's a big business there, that's fine. But as local farmers, I've been to so many rural farmers. I've done my PhD with rural farmers, and actually already the university is looking for funding to support my work, to take it to Uganda and work with rural farmers, but as groups, as cooperatives. And that's what I can say.
Thank you very much, Ambassador John.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Katende. Once again, I would like to highly appreciate you, Mr. Mutenza, and of course, Madam Ocheng. I think this has been a very useful, very fruitful forum. I think going forward, our work is cut out for us. The Uganda agribusiness team, Mr. Katende, I think there is a lot of homework to do in terms of organizing the producers and making sure that all these things that we talked about are put into action, the challenges notwithstanding. And of course, on this other side in the UK and of course Ireland, we have people who have the expertise. Mr. Mutenza has just pointed out how they can be helpful, and as the High Commission, we are always open to advise, to provide information, even market survey, and these are things that we are doing together with Uganda Export Promotion Board. But we would like to link more with the people who are doing the production on the ground. And whenever we can assist, we are happy to do so, and that's why we are here. Once again, thank you so much for all the contributions from the participants. I think this has been a wonderful Zoom discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador John. This meeting has been brought to you by Uganda-UK Convention and Uganda Agribusiness Alliance. But before I invite Mr. Mutenza on as one of the organizers, Perez, we want to say thank you so much for sparing a lot of time and selflessly share with us your experience and what you know, and we want to bank on you in the spirit of East Africa to continue hosting you. And of course, we are the number of topics that are emerging from this discussion where people are asking for more time and more explanation. So when we call on you again, I know you will say yes, but we want to thank you so much in the Ugandan way. Normally we could hug you, but you're very far and we are social distancing. But perhaps we can clap for you. That's the least we can do for now. Well done. Well done. Yes, so Perez, did you have a final word, like a minute or so less?
I am here to help in whatever topics that we've discussed today. And I'd love to see something good come out of this. As I said, you know, if we want to focus on crop by crop, the cooperative side of things, the investment or the supply chain, but I want to help, you know, and I want to see something good come out of this meeting. And I'm here whenever you call on me, I'll try and make the time and be helpful to my brothers and sisters. Feel free to ask questions or feel free to organize other meetings and invite me. And as I said, I will share with you up to what do you call the latest knowledge and trends that I know to help us get into this market. Don't let us lose this opportunity.
Thank you so much. This is what our leaders have been trying to do, the spirit of East Africa.
Edward.
Mr. Mutenza,
Edward.
Your final word, please.
Yeah, hello, everyone. First of all, I just wanted to thank our speaker, Mrs. Perez, who has been a friend of mine for over 20 years. And of course, I thank also all the participants, our high commissions, and a lot of Ugandans from the diaspora. And of course, I think we've been talking for the last 20 years with Mrs. Perez and a few others. But I think let us now try to literally get something out of these discussions. I think one of the main issues that I'm looking at is access to markets and access to funding and finance. I think next time we are going to organize some of the private equity guys here who normally finances and funds agro projects to come and probably speak to you. And I'm going to also to organize Mr. Shahid, one of the top packagers. He's got a big packaging industry here, to come and talk to you what you actually need in order to access this market in terms of adding that value in terms of packaging. And please thank you so much for participating, and God bless you.
Thank you.